My name is Laurie Love, and I'm a certified erotic blueprint coach. So I specialize in turning people on to their superpowers, their erotic superpowers, through the 5 erotic blueprint types that were founded and created by my mentor Jaya. So the 5 erotic blueprint types, there's energetic, and those are the people who like really feel energy. They're the ones that are like really sensitive to the energy that happens in the world, like energy from nature, the moon cycles, crystals, that are very in tune to sort of that ethereal world. Then there's the sensuals, and sensuals are like, they love everything that has to do with the senses. So taste, touch, sight, sound, everything is like all about pleasure of the senses. And then there's the kinky folk, and kinky is such a wide range. There's a huge variety. And what I like to describe kinky as, it's whatever is taboo to you specifically, because there is a vast plethora of all kinds of things to explore. And so I really hone it down to like, what's taboo for you. Then there's the sexuals, and they're the ones that are like, love nudity, love nakedness, like ready to get it on. 0 to 60, that's what they want. Orgasm is the end goal and the main goal, and like that's where we're going to. And then there's the shapeshifters, and they're a combination of all of the erotic blueprints, and they're the ones that just like love it all and they want more of it. And so it's like, can never have enough. So those are the people who have been told, you're too complicated, you're too much, you're insatiable. A lot of shapeshifters hear that. So what I like to do is I approach sexuality from these erotic blueprint types to discover, what are your erotic blueprints? And then I talk about what my erotic blueprints are and how I have expanded, like how it's changed my sex life, how it's transformed my world, how it's transformed, how I live life and how I show up.
I know that people have likened the 5 erotic blueprints like the 5 love languages.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And the 5 love languages, they help you know yourself on some level better. Like, oh, wow, I do feel really loved. Like, I know for sure mine is words of affirmation. So I feel so loved when someone says something positive or kind or loving to me. And that actually has helped me know myself so much better. And it does help you navigate relationships better. Like, this is what I need to feel loved. What do you need to feel loved? What have you found really helps people when they do know their erotic blueprint? Like, what is the main benefit of that? Is it that they may experience more pleasure because they know the right way to find it, or deeper relationships, or what have you seen be like the main benefits?
The main benefits is communicating your needs, wants, and desires. Like it's a communication tool. Because I found that I was really frustrated in my relationship. Like I was just not getting my needs met, and I didn't know how to ask for it because I didn't really know what I wanted. And so when I discovered the erotic blueprints, and as Jaya went through and explained like all the nuances and the subtleties, I saw myself in them. And then I went, oh yeah, I'm like that. And this is what I want. And this is how I want to be touched. Because every single blueprint, there are subtleties as to how to approach them, how to touch them. Like you said, in the love languages, like words of affirmation, one of my love languages is quality time. And so knowing that I love quality, that I need quality time, I'm able to then express to people, hey, what's really meaningful to me in our friendship and our relationship is us spending one-on-one quality time together. And so it's the same for the erotic blueprints, as I'm highly sensual as well as energetic and psychological kinky. And so what I've found is that I go to people and I'm like, here's what I need. For instance, to my partner, I came across the erotic blueprints because I was really, really frustrated with the relationship. And I felt like my partner was not doing anything right. He just couldn't get it right. And when I learned about the energetic blueprint, I learned that like energetics love hovering hands. They actually don't like any touch. Sexuals are like, yeah, touch. Sensuals, touch. Energetics actually like a lot of space. And so when I was able to communicate, instead of touching me, just hover your hands over my body. And that feeds me. And when I was able to communicate what I wanted, I then felt more fed. I felt more seen, heard, experienced, and accepted.
Oh, you said the magic words. Okay. Well, yeah, people are gonna be feeling more seen, heard, accepted, experienced, then that's a great reason. Those are, I've interviewed hundreds of Jasmine members and models. And what I have found, and I've asked so many of the models, do you think this is true? They say yes. What I have found is the real reason that people are on sites like Jasmine specifically, but it's honestly because they're looking to feel either heard or seen or understood in some way.
Yeah, we want that connection. We
Yes.
want that deeper sense of someone knowing us. And like through the erotic blueprints, what better way to be known than to know ourselves and then to know our partners as well. So for my partner and I, it deepened our intimacy. It deepened our connection. I mentioned that I'm an energetic sensual with psychological kinky. He's a sexual shapeshifter. So no wonder we weren't connecting, because he was more in the sexual realm and I was more in like the senses and space realm. And so I had a lot of judgment against him of like, well, why do you want this all the time? And why do you need this? And why is this so important to you? And like, can't you, give me what I want? Through understanding his blueprints, I then accepted him more. I went, oh, okay. I dropped the criticism. I dropped the judgment. I was able to like accept him and expand into my own sexual blueprint and expand into the shapeshifter blueprint and meet him. He met me and I met him on a different level and a different wavelength. And our relating completely changed. So on platforms like this, like you said, having that connection and making that, forming that relationship with another person, it's very like at first, like before the pandemic happened, it was like, how does this work online? Right. But then we found that like, oh yeah, this can totally work online. Like this works so well online. We can connect we can actually connect at a very deep level online. And that's what I love about it, especially energetics, because we don't need to be in the presence of someone. We like to have that space and that openness.
Absolutely. It changed. I honestly think one of the things that came out of the pandemic was efficiency. Really, because we realized, wow, so much actually can be done online. So much actually can just, you don't have to drive 2 hours in traffic to meet at the same spot. Just do it through Zoom. You know what I mean? Like, I personally find it efficient and time saving. And while I value in person as well, I think so many things can be done online and should be. They can be.
Yeah. And with, in sexuality, like I find that foreplay starts like before there's even any contact. I can start my arousal level when my partner leaves home to go to work. and I work from home. And so I can start with, sending nice little messages. I've started sending pictures of myself. That's something that I never did before. And so, as to, your point of efficiency, like it's fun, it's playful, it's another tool, and like it can be really hot.
Absolutely. And again, and I think that a lot of people enjoy, and again, for people who are members on Jasmine, let's say they are single or feeling lonely or whatever the case is. And when they're able to engage with a model who's sending pictures or cute messages, it gives them that experience that makes them feel connected.
Yeah.
Like I'm certain your partner enjoys those messages from,
Very much so.
I'm sure. And it makes people feel valued and thought about and connected and again, like seen, and those are basic human needs. So when people aren't in positions to get them, whether they are in a relationship or they're not, I think that people feel they go hungry for that and they may not even know what it is they're craving.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people, come to Jasmine, whether they know it or not, to explore their sexuality, in the sense of they may have a fantasy that they're afraid to share with a partner, but they really want to act it out. Or maybe they've had a partner who's like, I gave them a bad experience and judged them because it was not what they like.
Right.
And so it sounds like what you're doing with this work is also kind of helping people explore themselves sexually, because that is probably one of the areas that we are not encouraged really to do a deep dive, just in general.
Oh, yes, most definitely.
I'm curious, what has been one of the most surprising things that you've learned about human sexuality since you've started seeing clients and been doing this work?
Let's see, one of like the biggest, Well, to the point that you were talking about earlier, about this sense of like feeling starved for something. Like I find like the number one thing that I have a lot of people that come to me because they're dissatisfied with their sex life. And I specialize in people who are feeling frustrated because I know how that feels. And the number one thing that I find is that they are starving for being fed in their blueprint. So the not realizing that I'm an energetic and I need to be fed in a certain way, or they're sexuals and they're starving because their partner's like, oh my gosh, you're too much for me. Like I can't possibly have sex that as much as you want to, and so the things that have been like the most eye-opening is how we relate to each other and how we communicate to one another. And the like lack of understanding, the lack of boundaries, the lack of conversation. One of the most profound things is the consent conversation.
Tell me more.
So in the consent conversation, like whenever I sit down with my partner, I want to know, like, what are you willing to do? What do you want to do? What are you willing to do? And what do you not want to do? It's like, I want to know what his yeses are. I want to know what his no's are. And I want to know what his maybes are. Like maybes can be like I'm possibly tell me more about that, or maybe I'm not ready for that. And so in this conversation, like I want to know what an absolute no is, because then I know, okay, that's off limits. That's fine. And maybes I take as no's, because if you're not willing to do that, then I don't want to push you, into something that you're not ready for. And maybe with a little bit more time, a little more titration, a more conversation, more understanding, maybe it could turn into a yes. But it doesn't necessarily have to. And then there's the yeses, yes, let's do this. That's what I want. And knowing how to feed, how to be fed and how to feed, it's transformational. An example of that is that for my partner's birthday, we did a Taoist erotic massage to feed his sexual and shapeshifter blueprint. And in that session, after we completed it, his body was so relaxed. And he was like, oh my gosh, that was like the best experience that I've ever had in my entire life. Thank you. From there, he was in a relaxed state. And then he was more open to explore energetic, practices, sensual practices. And so, I like some of the most profound things are seeing people be fed in their blueprints and the effect that it has on them. It's like, finally, I'm not starving anymore. Finally, I'm not hungry. Finally, like I'm satisfied and I can relax and be in more pleasure. Because in that, like you were talking about earlier, a lot of people come to LiveJasmin because they're looking for something. There's something that's lacking in their life. And they don't know, like to your point, they don't know exactly what it is. And they're willing to explore it. And so, it's really important. Like self-pleasure is really important. Feeling pleasure, it's nourishing, and we're not taught this. Like I was listening to a lot of videos and yeah, these conversations are not had. Like our sex education growing up is dismal. It's left up to us, to educate ourselves. And where do we go first? Porn, because that's the easiest thing that is accessible and free. And then, I found that then that is what I thought sex was. And that's what I thought I had to do and had to be and had to perform. And I found that that I was just wearing a mask. We call it the sexual mask. And it's like, oh, because it looks this way, and because I'm told that it's supposed to be this way, then that's how I need to be. And through the erotic blueprints, I discover that it can be like that, and that's wonderful and beautiful. And it can be all these other ways too that we just don't talk about, that we haven't been educated about. So, I going back to being fed, I think is one of the most profound things. And people learning what their blueprints are and then being fed in those blueprints and the transformation that happens.
For anyone listening that's like, oh my goodness, what is my blueprint? I'd never even heard of this. How can they find out?
So there's a free erotic blueprint quiz, and I can supply you with my website. And would you like me to say it here, or would you like to? Okay. So there's a link to the free erotic blueprint quiz, and there's also a paid quiz. It's on the same page. There's a link on my website, and my website is www.laurielove.org. And that's LaurieLove.org. And from there, you can go and take the quiz. And if you take the free quiz, it'll tell you what your primary erotic blueprint type is. And then you can go and read more about it. Or you can schedule a Passionate Possibilities call with me for free. And I offer a 60-minute session, no obligation, where we can talk about your erotic blueprint and talk about what it is that you're looking for and what it is you need. And I can answer questions. And if you take the in-depth quiz, you'll get your percentages. So it'll tell you, based on how you responded to the questions, what percentage are you energetic? What percentage are you sexual? What is your shapeshifter percentage? What percentage are you sensual? And what percentage are you kinky? And then from there, you will get a report that will talk about your primary blueprint and the one that you scored the highest in. And it goes through all the superpowers and all of the shadows and all the characteristics of that blueprint.
With all of that said, and this knowledge that you have, and you seeing how it changed your life and your relationship, what is one of the biggest things that you wish the world knew about human sexuality? you don't think they know right now?
So that message would be, it's okay to want what you want. You have permission to want things. You have permission.
I think that's powerful. Yeah.
That, you know, it's sexuality is to be celebrated. Like, we don't do enough celebrating. And in the Erotic Blueprint community, we celebrate all the time. Like, every single coaching call that I'm on, I'm like, all right, what are we celebrating? It's the first thing, because there's so much competition, and there's so many limiting beliefs. Like, we're taught so much, and it's been ingrained in such a negative way, that we don't celebrate it. We don't talk about it. We're not open, about, yeah. Wouldn't it be nice to just walk into a room and be like, oh my gosh, I just had the best orgasm?
That would be so nice.
Like, wouldn't that be fun if we could just, if we could feel comfortable enough to like talk about it?
Yes.
Normalizing pleasure is one of the reasons why, I chose to go into this profession. Because I lived in frustration, judgment, and criticism for far too long. And when I found people of like mind that wanted to celebrate and experience and do it in a consensual way, where everybody's on board, and like the freedom, the weight was lifted, the healing began, where I feel like we're shamed and guilted into trying, being controlled. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much freedom and expansion, and sex is healthy. Like, the studies that are done about all the healthy hormones that happen when we're in pleasure and when we have orgasm, it's like, it's amazing. We have this pharmacy inside of our brains and our bodies that is natural and beautiful and is antidepressant and healing. And so, I promote that in my life. It's having a healthy view of sexuality is really important to me.
I love that. I love that you basically were like, you have permission to experience and explore and talk about your pleasure. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is,
I'm very interesting at dinner parties.
I love that. I love that. You really do have the permission slip. All someone has to do is say, so what do you do?
Mm-hmm. I do. And then I get consent. And is there anything you'd like to talk about? I always get consent before I share any stories, Yeah.
That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Just using your own example or your own personal experience as the example, how has your life changed since you started focusing on your pleasure, talking about your pleasure?
I'm a much happier person. Quite honestly. Like I said, I spent a lot of time in frustration and self-judgment and criticism and feeling not good enough and feeling like there was something wrong with me, and looking outside of myself for people to make me feel good. And in doing this work, the biggest transformation is self-acceptance and acceptance of my partner, because my partner is a mirror of me. There's a reason why our blueprints are different. And I really feel like it's because we complete each other. We have these different pieces, and then we fit them together and see how they work and interact. And so, I've been able to, like, I am so much happier. I feel so much calmer, much more fulfilled. I love my life. I love being on this planet. I love interacting with people more. It lights me up.
That's beautiful. I think those are all things that people want and are looking for and seeking to experience, but not exactly sure how to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I love the Erotic Blueprint community. So there's also something that we have that's called the Erotic Freedom Club. And it's a membership that you can join, and it's an online platform. And you can post questions, pictures, like all is welcome. You can chat with other people and have conversations about sexuality. Like, it's all welcome. It's all allowed. It's monitored and it is consensual. And it's a place where we can just express ourselves freely. And it's beautiful because there are also coaching calls every month that are included that are led by Erotic Blueprint coaches. And so it's a really safe space to bring anything that you're struggling with. And if you need connection, like, you don't have to talk, you don't have to interact. You are more than welcome to view and be a voyeur, because that's really hot in itself, right? And that feels really safe in itself. And so you can participate at your own comfort level. But it's a safe space where you can just bring any of your questions and concerns, and you can really be seen and felt and heard and accepted, and celebrated. And you can ask, like, one of the things that I love about posting is that, like, if I have something very vulnerable that I want to share, that I want to be witnessed and seen in, I can post it. And then I could ask for support. I could ask for coaching. I could ask for words of affirmation, words of encouragement. Or I could say, I don't need anything at all. I just want to put this out there. I want to be witnessed, but please, no comments. And then that's respected. And so I love that it's a safe container with all of this consent built into it.
I think that's beautiful. And again, I think that we need more and more places like that. I know, obviously, certain members of LiveJasmin, that's how they feel in the space and in certain models' rooms. And I think the more we just have places where people can go and be authentic and free, the better that it is. Whatever works for the individual, everyone's different in what they are more aligned with or not. And I'm curious though, when you're seeing clients, is there one thing in particular that you notice as a theme or a trend?
Yes. One of the themes or trends is that people have a hard time getting into their bodies. There's a lot of disassociation going on because we're not really taught to feel our feelings, right? We're not taught to like, oh, let's pay attention to like how our arms feel and how our internal organs feel, and, you know, taking care of our bodies. It's more like, oh, let's go away, go away. You know, a lot of times I find, like, in my life, I felt like I was just like a walking head, you know, like my mind is just, you know, walking around and dragging my body with it. But I really didn't have any, oh, how does this feel to my body? It was more, what do I think about this? What do I think about my body versus how does my body actually feel and respond to things? And so in this disassociation, like before I do a video, and the first thing that I do on a client call is I do something that's called pleasure first. And this is something that Jaya and Ian created, where we get into our bodies and we notice any subtle movement, any subtle change. And we feed ourselves, you know, in whatever it is that our body needs. And I find that this, you know, brings us out of our head and back into our bodies. And so one of the tools that I love using the most, because a lot of people say, I can't get out of my head. Like I can't orgasm. You know, I see erectile dysfunction as an issue. I see lack of turn on as an issue. I'm in my head. I'm thinking about all the things that I need to do. I'm thinking about what happened to work. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about that, and the kids and the dog, and and my mind won't shut up. And it's like, that is a major issue. And so by grounding and doing more somatic practices that are just very easy, very quick, very subtle, we can drop out of our heads and into our bodies. And one of the tools that I teach everybody is the 1 to 5 scale. And so a lot of issues are like, oh, they're just not touching me right. They just don't know, like, and I don't know how to give feedback. I don't know how to communicate that. And then I'm in my head. And so I teach everybody the 1 to 5 scale, where, and you can use this in a moment where like you don't have the words for it. You can't describe why. And by teaching your partners what this 1 to 5 scale is, you now have a very simple communication tool that will not take you into your head and out of your body. And that scale is: 1 is, I didn't like that. Please don't do that again. 2 is, meh, like, meh. 3 is that was okay. 4 is that is highly pleasurable. And 5 is, if you keep doing that, I'm going to have an orgasm. Yes, please. I love it. And so what I find is that anytime we're in the bedroom and we're engaging and something happens, like my partner knows this scale. And so I can just yell out a number. I can be like, that's a 3. And if it's a 1, I can be like, darling, that's a 1. Let's try something else. And so it doesn't make him like good, bad, right, wrong. And I don't need to like tell him why. I don't have to explain myself. I don't have to tell him what to do. I can just say a number and he can try something else. He can try something different. And it's really important when something's like a 4 to say it's a 4. And when something's a 5, say it's a 5. I find that communication, we don't communicate. We keep it all inside. In my experience, like, especially when, my partner has 2 kids and now they're grown and they're out of the house. But when they were little, like, we had to be really quiet, right? We couldn't make any noise. We couldn't make any sounds. And, and so we got used to not speaking. We got used to being quiet and just kind of going through the motions and doing what we just naturally did and what worked for us. And until it didn't work anymore, And so I love the number scale because it's simple, easy.
It's really interesting. I'm sure that there are people listening who are like, I'm going to try that.
I hope they will. It's my favorite tool and I talk about it all the time. So please do. And let me know how it works.
You've given really practical information that people can look into or try. And I love that. I love when the audience has like tangible, practical things that they can do.
Me too.
Yeah, I think it's important.
It's my sexual blueprint. Like, my sexual blueprint wants to like get to the point, tell me what I need to know, nothing fancy. Like, I want it to work. And so I'm very much like that. Give me the practical tools so that I can implement it and change my life.
Yes, practicality.
Mm-hmm.
A key.
Yeah.
Is there anything about your work, human connection or sexuality, even camming, that we didn't talk about, but you want to share?
Yeah. We didn't talk about safety and how important safety is, both energetically and physically. And I find that, we want to have all these really great experiences. Like, honestly, the reason why I got into this work is because I wanted to have a mind-blowing orgasm. Like, I wanted to have one of those orgasms that you see in the videos where they're just like, they're having a blast and it's like full body, mental, physical, emotional, all of it. Like, I felt that I was missing out on that. And what I realized is that that's what I was always chasing after. And it wasn't until I slowed down and really got in touch with who I am and what I want that then my body was actually able to open up and have that mind-blowing orgasm experience where it was like full body, totally ecstatic, loud and proud, moment, that I needed to create a level of safety within myself first that then gave me the permission to be fully expressed. And so I talk a lot about feeling safe in your own body and doing whatever it is that you need in order to do that. We're not taught about boundaries. We're not taught about how to have those conversations. And so then we're just chasing after, and I find that in my experience and in a lot of people that I work with, we override our boundaries all the time so that we can get what we want, or we can give somebody what we think that they want so that then they will give us what we want. So starting with having a level of safety in ourselves and our environment, that was the biggest game changer for me. Full self-acceptance of where I'm at and what I want, and feeling comfortable enough to be able to say what I need and to have someone receive it. So in my coaching practice, like, everything is welcome. Nothing is off limits. We can talk about anything and everything, and having that safe space and creating that safe container is really important.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's, again, when I hear you talk, it's just so interesting when I hear you talk about these safe places and allowing people to blossom. Again, these are the things that we need more of. And I think people are really seeking them out and really wanting them. And I see that to be true with how successful and popular sites like Jasmine or OnlyFans, or even certain pockets of social media where people feel like they found a Facebook group where it's like-minded people and they feel safe, and people are desperately craving that environment of safety where they can be authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And know that they're held and they're accepted and they're celebrated for it. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. That was a lot of fun.